Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the In My Joyful Era podcast. I'm so glad you're here. If you are new, my name is Haley, and I am a certified life coach who helps young professional women set themselves up for success when it comes to work-life balance and creating the life of their dreams. I am passionate when it comes to supporting women to live their lives in any way that they choose. And I want to see a generation of young women who take back their autonomy and build a career and lifestyle that works for them and their situations. So last week we heard from Vanessa of Connected Habits Coaching, who talked with us about her experiences with burnout and how it affected her physical health. And if you were also here for episode 2, then you will know we talked a lot about taking the first steps to creating your dream life. And part of that was learning to fall in love with yourself. Now, we need to dive deeper into learning who we are as a person so that we know what it is that we actually want in life. And it is important to love yourself and to discover what it is you want before you go searching for it. And so, before we get into this episode, I highly recommend that you go back to episode 2 and 3 because it will give you some more context for what we're going to be talking about today. So this week, we're going to dive deeper into that topic of loving yourself, and we're going to be talking about the non-negotiables of self-love. So let's get into the episode. To love yourself is not just to like yourself, but it also means to take care of yourself. And I know so many go-getter, boss babe, do everything for everyone type people who love being active in their place of employment or in their communities. And these are women who won't say no when you ask for help. They are always there for you, always striving for the next best thing, and have so much on their plates. Does this sound familiar to you? It can be really exciting to be this type of woman, and it feels good to know that people think you're good at your job. And it feels good to know that people appreciate you being there for them. And it's kind of like an addiction. It feels good to be needed. It feels good to be wanted. And you guys, this was me for so many years. For example, I will never forget the 2022-2023 school year. I was teaching full-time. I was on 3 nonprofit boards, and I was on an accelerated 1-year track to get my master's, and I was planning my wedding. And that was also the year my grandma passed away, so there was a lot of family stuff going on, and of course I was always trying to be fully present for my friends and the people I cared about. And I'm so grateful that I can look back on that time and be like, wow, I was able to get through that. Go Haley! But also I look back and I'm like, oh, that's why I was sick all the time. That's why it was hard for me to lose weight. That's why I was super stressed in my journals every single time I went in to write. And I still to this day can see a pattern between my stress levels and my health. And there are certain people in my life that actually caused me so much anxiety that when I would wake up in the morning and drive to that destination, I would always get a sore throat or stomach pain. And stress is directly indicated to our health. And so I really want to talk about in this episode those building blocks of what it means to be healthy and live a healthy lifestyle so that you don't end up in a similar situation. And there are a lot of people listening to this podcast who know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to stress and how it relates to our health. But a lot of times when it comes to like cutting out major parts of our lives or thinking about like people we need to say goodbye to or obligations that just aren't in the cards for us to get rid of, like how do we take care of ourselves and how do we love ourselves in a way that we can thrive and live a life of joy, but also take care of ourselves. And it's a really hard thing to do. So I really want today to talk about the core principles, the must-dos when it comes to health for those busy individuals. Now, no matter where you are at in your health journey, I want to talk about these core principles that can help any person at any level build a structure and routine that works best for them. Okay, so that's kind of our plan for today. That's our outline. So if you're like, Haley, I don't know if this is for me, just hang in there. Just bear with me a little bit. But the first thing we're going to talk about, the very first and most important core principle is, does anyone know? Drum roll. Sleep. when you are creating your schedule for the week, the very, very first thing that you need to prioritize when you are counting up your hours is how many hours you're going to sleep each night. Your life starts with your rest. At church, we've been talking about this a lot. And Pastor Matt, if you are listening, I think I might ask you to be a guest speaker on this podcast and talk about the importance of rest, because it is so vitally important. And what we're talking about is something that our culture disagrees with. I'm talking about setting sleep as a number one priority, whereas a lot of America is like, I'll sleep when everything's done. I will earn my rest. I will earn my sleep, and I'll just go to bed once everything's finished. I'll go to bed after I've been productive, and then I'll wake up so that I can go do the next thing. That's not what I'm trying to say. You need to go to bed at a planned time with a certain amount of hours that you know you need in order to feel awake and refreshed each and every morning. So we need to start our schedule building with sleep. And once again, this is not how our culture views sleep, because a lot of what we hear, the messages that we hear are you need to earn your rest and you can't sleep until everything is done. And I can't tell you how opposite this needs to be. Like, we need to be looking at this the other way around. If we want to be productive, if we want to be good wives, moms, sisters, teachers, lawyers, doctors, we need to start with sleep as our first and primary foundation. So science says that you need within 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. And is it possible to, quote, function on less? Technically, yes, but over time, that lack of sleep is going to catch up to you. And this can lead to burnout, frustration, health issues. The list just goes on. So if you want to be the best version of yourself that you can be, you need to prioritize rest first. Now, I feel like we should have a whole episode on just creating healthy sleep habits and how to set yourself up for success. So tune in to In My Joyful Era episode XYZ on sleep habits. But for now, I'm just going to give you a few tips. And first, I think this is huge. I know you've heard it, but none of us actually do it. And that is turning off your screen before you go to bed. Studies show that blue light before bed causes your brain to remain active longer than it should, which makes it really hard for you to fall asleep. So how do we fix this? Well, me personally, I love to read before bed. Actually, that's not true. I like it when my husband reads to me before bed. And you guys, I am so spoiled. I just want to give a shout out to Drew, who's my husband. He's just the most wonderful, loving person. And he's actually reading me the Harry Potter books aloud for the very first time. I wasn't allowed to read them as a kid. So this is a brand new experience for me. So if you're watching this, please don't spoil anything in the comments for me. I'm on the last book. It's so good. But having someone read to you is just so calming and so soothing. So if you have a man, ask him to read to you. If you don't have a man, go find an artificial one. Put on an audiobook, go on YouTube and put on a sleep story. I heard Matthew McConaughey on an app giving sleep stories now. That sounds super fun. But having someone read to you, reading words on a page, I promise you it's going to put you right out. So second tip, get everything ready for the next day ahead of time. Have your gym bag packed, ready to go. Create a list of everything that needs to get done. Put out your clothes. Just make sure that when you get up, you are setting yourself up for success, because you don't want to be worrying about it when you're trying to fall asleep. You don't want to feel like you have to get up earlier because it takes your brain so much time to think through things. Just have it ready beforehand. I also like to use, as my third tip, I don't like to tell anyone to go out and purchase things usually, but this one I'm going to tell you, it is so worth your money, and that is a sunrise alarm clock. And there's a lot of Instagrammers out there who are telling you to buy the super expensive Hatch alarm clock. You don't need that. I bought the $30 knockoff alarm clock, and it works just fine. And what the sunrise alarm clock does is, over a set amount of time, I have mine set for 30 minutes, it will fake a sunrise with light in your room. So throughout that 30-minute time, it goes from really dark to really, really bright. So it feels like you're literally awakening from sleep to a sunrise. And it is the best way to wake up, and it helps me feel very refreshed and very natural in how I wake up. My last tip is to create a nightly routine that you enjoy. And this is hard for me too, and it's something that I'm still working on because I am someone who absolutely hates nighttime. And it's actually kind of funny because I just took a full time job apart from this business that requires me to be out late some nights of the week. And this is really hard for me, like I said, because I'm someone who loves routine and I like structure, and it is hard to have routine when some nights I have to be out late. So, right now, I personally am building a nightly routine that can be adjusted to whatever time I wind up going to bed. And so that's what I wanted to talk about with sleep is just building these healthy habits and starting your foundation off when you're making your schedule with sleep. So that's pillar number 1. And you might be very surprised when I give you the second pillar of healthy habits for busy women, and that is rest. You might be like, girl, we just talked about sleep and now we're going to talk about rest. Yes, we are. Because last week, what we heard from Vanessa is that it is important that we actually teach our minds how to rest outside of the sleep cycle. And the difference between rest and sleep is that one you're awake and conscious for, and the other you're not. And finding restful activities actually helps calm our minds and bodies for daily stressors. And without rest, we would actually be in fight or flight mode every single moment of our waking day, and then we'd be fast asleep, and then it's fight or flight, and then it's back to sleep. So rest helps us break that up in the middle of our day and helps our minds calm down. So some of you who are listening might be like, I hate everything about this concept. I hate rest. I don't have time for that. I don't need that. I don't want that. I go crazy when I try to rest. And I hear you. And I think part of that is because we were taught as a society that we need to be productive at all times, that like our value as a human being only comes when we're productive. And that's really sad and really dangerous, but also like very understandable. That is something that's been ingrained in me, ingrained in my family, ingrained in my friends, and we're trying really hard as a society to say, hey, you're worthy as a human being, not because of what you can produce, and it's okay to rest. So if nobody else is telling you, let me tell you, it is okay to rest. And I have to tell you that there is productivity when it comes to resting your mind, and it does have a positive outcome because your brain is going to be so much more efficient and effective in a healthy state. Now, I just watched an episode of Madam Secretary, which is a great show if you haven't seen it. And Russell, who's the president's chief of staff, is trying to find some sort of relaxing activity to do because he suffers from a heart attack. And his doctors say that he needs to lower his cortisol and cholesterol levels. So Stevie, who's this intern, is like, you should try mindful breathing, yoga, tai chi. And he's like, no, this is all woo-woo. And I'm like, a lot of us think that these activities are not for us. It's hard to sit still. It's hard to go about these things. And so a lot of women just decline the concept of rest and mindful activities altogether. And what I love about Madam Secretary is that Russell doesn't give up trying to find his thing, his mindful resting activity. So you know what he decides to do? Is he decides to pull out an old model airplane kit and build this this model set airplane. And it calms his soul and it calms his mind. And for some of you, yoga, meditation, deep breathing just isn't for you. For others, it's definitely the way to go. And there's so many health benefits that these activities have. But if those things are not in your wheelhouse, you don't feel comfortable doing them, then find something else. Some activities that might be reading for pleasure, coloring, cross-country skiing, swimming, knitting, sewing, building those model airplanes, Legos. My husband likes playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. There's just so many things that you can do. And I do want to take a moment here and say if reading is your activity, that I highly, highly recommend that you stay away from most nonfiction and self-help books. But Haley, you might be saying, I love nonfiction books. And I would say, so do I. I love them so much, and you can never take them away from me. But here's the problem of using nonfiction books as a resting tool. And the problem is that you are still actively learning and activating your brain in a way that's not letting you rest. So if you're doing those self-help books, you are being like literally analyzing your own life in your own mind and trying to compare yourself to that. situation and what you need to be doing. If it's a history book, which I love history books, I was a history major, you might be trying to learn facts and store them away. Try really hard not to do that. Find something else. Find poetry, romantasy, a joke book, something that will turn off your mental load in order for you to rest. So, pillar number 1, sleep. Pillar number 2, rest. Pillar number 3 is going to be related to food and how we eat it. Now, I know for a fact that in America, it is so hard to eat 100% clean all of the time. And I'm not here to ask you to do that. I'm not here to ask you to go on a diet. I'm not here to ask you to watch your calories. Clean eating is great, but I'm going to pose a different idea to you, and that is mindful eating. So I want you to think about your values, your health goals, and your priorities. How is the food you're eating supporting those values? So if you're someone who wants to run marathons, are you eating enough carbs and protein? If you're someone who values let's try that again. If you are someone who values celebration, allow yourself to eat some cake. And if you're like me, trying to shed a few pounds, then how do calories play into what you're eating? Perhaps you care a great deal about the local economy. Are the foods that you're eating aligned with your values? And the worst thing that we can do when it comes to food is ignore it and shove it down our throats. Food is supposed to be enjoyed slowly. If we eat too quickly, we might overeat, or worse, not digest the food that we're eating. There was a time in my life I was so completely stressed out and overwhelmed, and I was also at the same time trying to lose weight. So I did the whole thing, I was exercising, I was in a caloric deficit, but I was still gaining weight. And I'm like, how is this possible? And the reason is because I had such high cortisol levels that my body actually kept signaling to itself to store fat, because I'm in danger, is what it was trying to say. Like, my body was trying to protect me, and no matter how much or how little I ate, didn't matter. So if you care about your health and well-being in any way, I want you to start by just paying attention to what you're putting in your body and ask, how does this support my values and lifestyle? It just slows you down and just gives you a second to think. If you get to a place where you want to make major changes in your life, then invest in a nutrition coach or nutrition program. I use the Lose It app on my iPhone, and it's not just to help me lose weight, but also it helps me keep track of whether or not I'm eating enough fiber, whether or not I'm eating enough protein. And there are programs out there to help you with whatever your health and food goals are. Now, food, yes, it's for our energy, but food is also one of history's longest family and friendship traditions that has ever existed. And when we think about the food we eat, we need to not only think about how it affects us physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And once again, this can be a whole other topic, an episode all in itself, but the last building block to healthy living that I want to talk about is actually related to eating foods. We have sleep, rest, values in our food, and the last one is cultivating community. Be wise in how you show up for others. Be a friend, set up times for friendship to flourish. And they say that laughter is the best medicine, but how can we laugh alone? We always laugh our best when we are with others. Loneliness is killing us as a people. I don't need to go into details about that because we all know what that statement means. But be a friend and allow others to be a friend to you. I mentioned earlier in this episode that it is so easy for us to be everything to everyone, and it can be difficult to allow others to be there for you. But you know that feeling like when you go visit someone in the hospital, or you bring someone a meal, or you drive someone to the airport, it can make you feel so good inside to help out that other person. And why wouldn't you want others to feel that same sense of joy about caring for you? And one of the things as humans we hate is thinking about ourselves as a burden. And I have to tell you that letting people love you does not mean that you are a burden to them. You are providing someone an opportunity to know you intimately and to show up for you in the ways that you love to show up for other people. Now, with all of these pillars that we talked about community, values of food, rest, sleep. You might be thinking, I don't have time for that. Well, you need to make time for these things. You need to. And I will tell you why. Without these core pillars, the time you are using in your day is going to be wasted. You will get sucked into burnout and exhaustion, and everything you want to do is going to take you 6 times longer. And I truly believe, personally, that I have a gift, but it's not really a gift because it's something that's just a part of me. I am a very fast learner, and I'm not trying to swell up my ego, but I just want to give you an example. Like, I am a fast learner because I've integrated these pillars into my life. And my husband is like, "How can you write a 5-page paper in an hour and a half?" And it honestly doesn't surprise me because my mind is sharp from implementing these habits. I've cultivated community. I eat healthy and I think about what I'm putting into my body. I sleep 8 hours a day. I take time every week to give myself mental rest. And that allows my brain to be open, and it allows my brain to create and explore and think clearly and reasonably. And I truly, truly promise you that if you implement these and you implement them in a way that works for you and your lifestyle, you will be shocked at how much free time you have when you prioritize living a more healthy life with these pillars. Self-love is not just about liking the person you are on the inside. It is about choosing to take care of the mind and body that your soul inhabits. Self-love is choosing to lay everything aside and start building up your foundation again. And I said this in another episode, and I'll say it again. It is not selfish to pause and take time for yourself. It is necessary for your survival. Your friends will thank you. Your job will thank you. Your kids will thank you. And you know what? Someday, you will also thank you. If you are someone who has experienced burnout and you are desiring to build these healthy habits and put into practice these healthy pillars for yourself, then I would love to invite you to the End Burnout for Good mini course. And it is going to be a 5-day course with videos sent to your inbox each day. There's going to be live Q&A sessions throughout the week and downloadable templates for you to use. If you are interested, it's $23, and you can find it at www.inmyjoyfulera.com. And I hope that you sign up because this is an invaluable resource because you are prioritizing your health, your well-being, and setting up the foundation for who you want to be as a person going into the future. So thanks so much for listening to the In My Joyful Era podcast. I would love it if you could share this with someone you know who maybe needs to think about what their health and wellness looks like, or they're desiring to make changes in their life and you think that they need to hear this episode. Please share it with a friend and give me a follow on Instagram at In My Joyful Era. I'm so glad to be part of your lives and that you've welcomed me into your homes and into your cars as we go through life together. And I'll see you next time at the next episode. Thanks again for listening.